southbound 131 construction is wild right now. Like a little bit further than us.
Yeah. Yeah, we went through that a few weeks ago.
I will say, I have a very pointed start to this, like an official start to this podcast. Something that I've wanted to talk to you about since I found out about. And no pressure. You can refuse to talk about it if you'd like. How the fuck did you get into yo-yoing? Tell me everything about your yo-yo experience right now.
I knew you were going to bring this up. So I liked, like, I remember just having like toy yo-yos, like your simple Duncan yo-yo with no bearing at home. And I just thought it was fun to kind of like fling them around and kind of make them do like crappy around the worlds and stuff. And I was like, yeah, it might be a fun little hobby. Like getting out. And I've talked about this before, like getting out of the military. I don't know who I am. I don't have really any hobbies except for like my little comfort habits.
Sure.
And so I was like, I want to try something new. So I just bought like a $15 yo-yo on Amazon, and it was metal and it worked. And then I grabbed a couple plastic ones that were like 2 for the same price. So I was like, sure, yeah, let's just practice with both and see what I like. And I started learning some tricks pretty quick. And
are there yo-yoers that you follow? And also, it might sound like I'm talking about this in a condescending way. I'm really not. I'm trying to figure out where this came from, because you're like actually legitimately good at it.
I'm okay at it. I'm now breaking into the unresponsive yo-yo world. So I have my yo-yos in my car.
Oh, dude. I'm cutting to footage of that. But also, I would like to, on the way out of this podcast, like, even if it requires you going down to grab it, I would like you to outro a couple of tricks for the camera.
Yeah, okay.
I'm actually going to write that down.
That's funny.
So I don't forget.
But yeah, I just thought it would be fun to start yo-yoing, and it just felt cool to do these tricks. I felt kind of like my wife. It's like a combination of like a very crappy Spider-Man and Indiana Jones.
Yeah. You're like doing whips and like...
I'm not doing anything like that. I mean, I could throw it out like that.
Oh, I've seen you do... There was one that you did on the beach the other day.
Oh, the brain twister? Yeah, where it like goes down, you get it on a front mount, and then you like twist it around like that, drop it, and then pick it back up. It's like the first like impressive looking trick you can do. And it's currently the only one I can do like successfully on an unresponsive yo-yo, like all the way through.
So this is definitely some ignorance popping through in the yo-yo world here. But isn't like a walk the dog, isn't that a relatively easy one?
Yeah.
Like it's just like continuing its own momentum at the bottom.
Yep, so you would like throw your yo-yo down, the yo-yo's bearing keeps it spinning, and so you just let it lightly touch the ground, and then it'll move forward and you walk with it, and then when you're ready to pick it up, you just jerk the string, it comes back up.
So, and if this is even boring to you at a certain point, let me know. But I'm actually curious about the mechanics of a yo-yo. I thought that it was literally just the two sides pressed together, and then the only momentum or spin that you have is from the string that wraps around the center pole. There's like bearings in it as well.
So yeah, so what you're thinking of is like a Duncan yo-yo. So there's like the old school ones where it's just like there's like a little like a mini dowel in the middle that just has the string coming out and it just wraps around. A responsive yo-yo is one where if you threw it down, you would like just tug your hand a little. Once the string gets a little slack, it'll just shoot back up to where the string is and to your hand. And then an unresponsive yo-yo just is the same thing. It has a bearing in it that lets it spin, but it doesn't. It's also further apart. Like the pieces of the yo-yo are a little further apart, so you can do tricks on the string like that.
When it comes to like competitive yo-yoing, and I don't even know if you're like into that world or if it's more just a fun.
It's fun to watch, but I'm like, I don't know what they're doing.
Well, like, is there like you can only use a certain type of yo-yo if you're in competitive yo-yoing? Like, is that like responsive one? Like
you have to use an unresponsive.
Okay. So that's like the one that I'm thinking of, where it's just like the traditional.
Like if you're looking at dudes like doing crazy stuff and they're like, the yo-yo's like moving back and forth like crazy in their hands and they're like throwing it up and like whipping the string around it. That's all going to be unresponsive yo-yo stuff.
To that degree, like the crazy shit that people can do with a yo-yo, I've been so there was a period of time. Are you familiar with Yella's Marble Run?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was really big into that during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But also I was watching like streams of people intense like slinkying. Have you seen those? That the same like coordination, like how you can watch where it goes and predict how it's going to react after you've launched it. Like
it's a lot of practice.
Yeah. So at risk of hanging on this yo-yo topic for too long, I'm actually curious about it. and maybe I can use this as like a transition to a greater point. You said that you were like looking for hobbies. Was there a spark moment that you're like, I'm gonna actually get good at yo-yo?
I just thought it would be fun to try.
Yeah.
Just learn a few tricks, like the ones I've seen before, like on TV or just people doing them anywhere, like in the street or whatever. Not that people do that.
They do.
Not a Cadillac.
Okay, that's fair.
But I just want to try it, and it is really fun. It's a good way to kill time, and it's not. There's like no pressure.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I was thinking of, like other hobbies I want to get into, like computers or
like building,
like
computers?
building them,
Okay.
or looking at like coding. And it feels like there's a lot of pressure to learn and know everything right away to start actually being productive with it. Or with like building computers, for example, money. Like
Yep.
yo-yo, it's $15 and you have the whole world in the palm of your hands.
That's right.
You just gotta practice.
There was a period of time, I don't think you were ever like a big video gamer, right? Or were you?
I did play a lot of games. I wasn't like, I mean, I still do play a lot of games, but I wouldn't say I'm like all I do.
Well, that was sort of the follow-up question. It's like, are you still in the video game world, or does like fatherhood affect that at all? Like,
Fatherhood does affect it. I mean, I don't really play games with my son around unless he's like dead set on like, Dad, I want to see you play like this game. Like there's a couple that he likes in particular.
how old is he now?
He's 2.5.
Okay.
He's turning 3 soon.
That's
so
wild.
I know it's wild, but I'd rather just spend time with him.
Sure.
And, just like certain, like watching brain rot shows all day is not going to be good for him. Watching me play video games isn't really going to do that much for him either.
What is, and if this is too personal, let me know, but like, where are you at on like screen time right now for like having a young kid? Like,
Like his screen time?
Yeah. In that question coming in with no like judgment or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I mean, people have their different ways of doing it, and there's a lot of perspectives on parenting too. Like I was 13. Yeah, I was 13 when one of my younger sisters was born, and my other sister, we have a 20-year age gap.
oh, okay.
So,
As in, she was 20 when you were born, or you were 20 when she was born?
I was 20 when she was born.
Okay.
And like seeing like how screen time when I was a kid and what they get, I kind of looked at it the same way with like other parents too. And basically, like we try to minimize it, but we're not against like watching fun stuff. Like,
Sure.
If you want to watch this crazy movie or like a silly show that like does nothing for you, like SpongeBob, for example, that does nothing for a kid. It's just a silly, dumb show. Like,
It's literally just a visual stimulant.
yeah, we're not going to like prevent him from watching it. But like if he wakes up and is like, I want to watch SpongeBob, we're not going to be like, okay, here's SpongeBob for the whole day.
Yeah.
It's more of like a kind of like a morning wake up thing. If he's like, hey, I want to listen to some music, we'll play some like simple songs. If
Cool.
Parents out there, you'll know what simple songs are. And if you're a new parent, you don't know what it is.
You mean like simple songs is a thing, not just conceptually simple songs.
I mean, they are simple songs, but it is
Right.
a channel on YouTube that plays like all sorts of kid songs. And
Okay.
they're great. But then like at nighttime, we might watch something more educational or something that's based in like language acquisition or numbers, not really any mathematics yet.
So like,
Or a movie.
if the world technologically is as it is now, there's no like a major breakthroughs or whatever, and we're not literally walking around with whatever the goggles, everyone is immersed in the metaverse or whatever, and it's just like there's iPads, there's cell phones or whatever. Do you know, or what is your best guess when like the right time for a kid to have their own like not just cell phone but smartphone is?
We are taking the approach like that is something you get when you're like 12 or 13.
Okay.
Like I've been on the internet as a kid and I wasn't really exposed to anything bad or harmful, but seeing,
I don't know how.
I mean, up until you're like a teenager and you're like, okay, let's look up like something crazy.
Sure.
Like
Okay.
like a car, flying off.
Yeah.
A highway.
What was it? What was that website? Live Leak.
Oh yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. Like
Yeah.
accidentally stumbling on that stuff.
Our fear is like he would be exposed to something like that, or someone being inappropriate with him.
Yep.
Or adults who again are trying to have some sort of connection or relationship with children.
There's also like millennials, and it sucks to like put it so like pointedly as like a generational thing, but like millennials have some of that awareness that the generation before us didn't have when it comes to like social media and the internet. that like
Yeah.
we can be a little bit more guarded of the younger even though
It's a new age stranger danger.
right, exactly. Like, so I guess there's so many, like the phone, the smartphone, and social media are three like levels of sort of the same thing, where it's like you introduce a phone to your child so he can get in, or they can get in contact with you. Like,
Right.
that's the first like, but then like giving them unfettered access to the internet.
Yeah,
It's freaky.
It's something that we're kind of afraid of, but I think with the way that we're raising him, and like we have a tablet for him, but we used it one time for his moving flight from Alaska to Michigan.
Oh, and that's that's where that stuff like comes in handy. Because like if a kid is like this all like everywhere, always,
and
that's a problem.
Like that in a lot of places, like all over the place. And we like, to us, that's just, it seems kind of irresponsible. Like either plan better so they're not in this situation, or don't bring them to wherever they are to have the tablet in front of them all the time.
Well, it's also like biologically a problem, right? Like it like stunts their development. And maybe we're just conjecturing about shit that I don't know shit about.
There's people say, there's studies that say that it does not affect, like, say, delayed gratification with children, or
it does not affect that.
Some people say that it doesn't, or it does.
What do you mean by delayed gratification? I guess,
like, for instance, like, you know how everything is like designed to just give you dopamine hits all the time.
Oh, sure, yeah.
People say that it affects children's ability to put off things or go through something more trivial or tedious to get to what they want. I don't know. I can't really say. And it's hard to say as someone who's like, we're all, conditioned to look at our phones all the time, or pay attention to social media.
Have you gotten caught on the inverse of that, where like you're stuck in your phone or something and then he picks up on like, why aren't you paying attention to me? That kind of thing yet?
Yeah, it's definitely happened before. Like if someone's trying to talk to you, or like even if you're on the phone, or like it doesn't even have to be the phone. It's just like not giving him attention when he wants it. Whether you're on your phone or like Uli and I are just talking to each other, he'll find a way to get our attention, whether it's like, bugging us, or like, okay, I'm going to go make a really tall tower of random crap and knock it over, or I'm just going to yell at the top of my lungs. Kids find a way to get your attention.
Sure. One last little point on the fatherhood thing. And maybe again, it's a pointed personal question. As it sits right now, how do you guys feel about more kids? Or do you think, is it something you want? Is it not really something you're even thinking about right now?
I think if we were to accidentally get pregnant, we would keep it,
Sure.
But as for like planning, like Roland, we were like, we want to have a kid. This is the best time in our lives to have one.
And you had just gotten back?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
No, we had him while I was in.
Oh, that's right.
But the thing was, like, we had TRICARE, which is like the world's best insurance ever.
Okay.
And the pregnancy the whole time and like his birth were probably the like worst times of our lives. And like the day he was born was like the best and the worst day of my life. Like I've never cried so much. And so
was it just because of the distance, like that you couldn't really be there as much as you wanted to for his first few months, or like?
No, it was so. I guess I'll tell the story.
I was gonna say, with again, like the freedom to not want to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so he was IUGR, or intrauterine utero. I can't think of. Basically, he was his growth was stunted in the womb, so he was just very small, small baby. But thankfully, something occurred called brain sparing, where basically your body's like, even though I'm small in the womb, I'm going to make sure the head grows normally and the brain develops normally. So
was it like a constriction thing? Like he was like wrapped, or we don't like turned upside down, or was it
nothing like that? And we don't. The doctors don't know. Nobody knew. And the whole time that he was in the womb, every doctor was telling us like, it first started with a test we took for 4 different like disabilities or ailments he might have. And they were like, oh, his levels for spina bifida are a little high. You might have spina bifida, and he's small. And so we're like,
scary.
And the whole time when that was going on, we had to start flying down to Anchorage for appointments. And we kept asking, like, what are these levels? Like, what is this? What are the chances? Is this like a coin flip? Is this like guaranteed? Is this like a 2%? And it turns out that the levels, like, it was basically marginal. Like it didn't matter.
Well, I'm also sorry to interrupt here, but like and we'll get into some of this a little bit, but like what, I know you were on your way out, but like, what was your relationship with the Air Force at that point? Was everybody just on base, or were you Oh, that's right. She was living with you on base.
Yeah, we lived
Okay,
together.
so it wasn't like you were gone.
No,
and
no,
you were
no,
only
no.
here for like a stay, and you had to like. Okay.
No, we were all together. We're all together in the last.
Okay, I forgot about that.
But after that, they were like, we don't know, and so I guess it doesn't matter because he's probably not going to have spina bifida. Like very unlikely, next to impossible. And so after that, they were just like saying things that were wrong, that we didn't know were wrong, or that were just made up. They would just tell us like things that could happen. I mean, really, the whole time we're just hearing like, he's probably going to die in the womb, or he's going to die when he gets born, for the whole time. But they could not give us any like reasoning or anything like that. So we had to like face tough decision. Like, do we go through with this, or do we just like watch our kid come out dead? But like, I don't know. Something in our heads was just like no one's giving us any real information to act on. So we're just going to keep going with this because, you know, we want him. And he was born healthy, totally fine. And then after he was born, you know, best day of my life, cried,
Of course.
Cried my eyeballs out. Never cried that hard in my life. It was awesome. But then a few hours later, we're hanging out with him, or no, he was in the NICU, in an incubator, and our doctor came in and was like, yeah, so I touched the back of his skull and it seemed really weird and made a weird sound. And we're going to take him to radiology to get him an X-ray and a CT scan. We're like, what?
Like
They thought
like soft skull type,
I'll get to that. So the radiologist technicians there scanned him both times, and they were like, yeah, he has skull fracturing and subdural bleeding, which means that he was bleeding on his brain.
Okay.
And we're like, what? How? He he's not showing any signs of pain. He's not crying.
And that also wasn't something that they were looking at before he was born, right? It was all like
after. She just went in and held him and just felt the back of his skull and was like, and so we all of a sudden, like, Aaliyah and him, there's no room for me on this little emergency plane, flew down to Anchorage. I unfortunately had to drive back home, you know, wait until 9:00 p.m. the next day to fly down to Anchorage.
Which is like terrifying. I can only assume, being like, I guess from her perspective as well, like now she's alone, right?
But there's also nothing we can do. So they're down in Anchorage. I wait until the next day. I go down there and we're in this really nice, it was a wonderful facility, NICU that's like everything's designed for like new babies and small babies there. And they were like, yep, our technician looked at some scans that we took of them and there's nothing wrong. And we're like, what? And they're like, she's like, yeah, I think someone just forgot that babies' heads don't fuse all the way when they're born. And I was so mad. I was unbelievably mad. And Aaliyah was, I mean, she was still had her butt kicked and she was up all night and everything. With
and
everyone,
a brand new mother.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So
that was a weird day.
Sorry to harp on it a little bit, but like, what? I guess I'm just confused, maybe in the same way that you were in that day, that like, how does a professional doctor think that that's, and is this when you go in to the hospital, is it just a general hospital facility, or is this like a VA related thing? Like
this is just a general hospital. And we were actually supposed to go to a hospital at an army base that was right next to our base. Right. And then a few days before, they were like, oh, sorry, we can't take him. He's too small. Go to the hospital in Fairbanks. And we're like, okay, so there goes like the whole medical team. We've been building a relationship forever. So we get there. Thankfully, everyone at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital was awesome. Really incredible people there. Yeah. And then got sent down there and spent 2 weeks down there until we waited for an emergency flight that had to come back up. So we just hopped on the plane and they let us fly for free up there. And TRICARE, again, the best insurance in the world. Pregnancies on average, this is probably a dated number, but they're like $30,000 for everything in total. Well, that extra flight was like an extra $50,000.
Brutal.
And TRICARE was like, come here, I got it.
Is TRICARE, and I'm going to preemptively apologize for every question I ask, because some of these are very personal, but also like, do you have TRICARE because of your relationship with the military, or is it just insurance that you use?
So you get it when you're in the military.
Okay.
And it basically just covers anything and everything. There's certain restrictions on it, but I don't really know what they are because I haven't ran into that issue before.
But it is a military insurance.
Yes. Okay, and if you say you retire from the military, you can have TRICARE after that. Like my grandpa, for example, he retired out of the military and he has TRICARE. I now go through VA healthcare, which is not TRICARE, but they basically they take care of me, but not my family.
When it comes to the VA, there's like a tropish, and I don't know if this is just because of government funding or whatever, and I'm going to really try to avoid some of the ins and outs of government and how government works and how whatever. Do you feel like, I feel like this is an escalatory question, but do you feel cared for by the VA?
I think so. I haven't really had too much experience with them so far. So when I initially did filings for our claims applications for disability, it felt kind of silly because, I mean, it's nice that they try to get you the soonest appointment possible, but some of them were like, okay, go to this exam down in Battle Creek, and it's like, oh my gosh, I have to drive down there, and they didn't tell me they're going to dilate my eyes, and so I have to sit there and wait for that to go away and then drive back. Like, it was a whole day gone. But so far, I've yet to see. I mean, I have my first general exam pretty soon. I did my labs the other day, so I got little pokey holes in my arm. So
I thought you'd taken up a hobby in heroin. So no,
it was. I mean, it looked cool, but
what is overall? And I guess this is pretty pointed, especially in comparison to what we were talking about on the phone. But like, when people complain about the VA, and this isn't Joe's opinion, this is just like, what is your read? Why are people overall, when they say that the VA or doesn't care, like what is that?
I think people have a lot of different problems with the VA. For some people, it could just be like they have certain limited locations to where they can treat you. So, for example, like I think they're big locations in Saginaw, like their hospitals. So if I like had to get surgery, let's just say surgery done, I would have to go down to Saginaw and do that. And for some people, that's a lot already, having to get down there, especially the older folks, or if say you have to like do another eye exam like I did, like that's a pain in the butt to go down there. Other people, it's the speed or efficiency of how the VA works. But like with any other government funded or government institution, there's a lot of red tape, and you just have to wait it out. I think there's that, and I know there's probably some other problems with things they might or might not grant, or their justification for granting those things or not granting them. Like for say like VA disability, for example, that's one thing that people get caught up in a lot. But I don't really have a whole lot of experience with them yet. So
just from hearing stories, though, my understanding is that like the longer the gap between your military and civilian life, the more uncared for people tend to feel. Like older veterans tend to slip in. And I don't know if this is a generational thing. And again, this is just a dude who hears things on the internet and whatever, but like,
I have no idea. I know, sorry, I touched your mic.
It's fine. It's good.
I know whenever I have been to the VA clinic, like say in Cadillac, the only people I see are old people.
Right.
I'm like one of the youngest vets in town. And apparently there's other young vets. I don't know where they are though.
All right, y'all. If you're watching the video version, see that skull? See this? This is not a punk house, it's a punk home banner. All of these things are available at catandcrew.com. That's right. They're the first sponsors. Catandcrew.com. Enter the promo code MONDAY. It's Monday, MUNDAY, to receive 10% off of your final purchase. You can get those koozies, you can get banners, you can get earrings, you can get coasters, you can get skull planters. I think it's really cool that they decided to give ADH.Deep-Dive listeners an exclusive deal, because it's cool that we're building a little audience here and that you guys get to have some sort of special perks that nobody else gets. So if you aren't familiar with it yet, go to catandcrew.com, enter the promo code MONDAY, MUNDAY at checkout, get 10% off your final order. Okay, back to the show.
Okay, so this is kind of like to tie in a few different things that we've been talking about. Not specifically the yo-yo thing, but hobbies in general. I'm trying to remember, and maybe you might remember a little bit better because you do less podcasts than I do. Were you... How fresh of a civilian were you when we talked last time? Do you remember?
It was the day before I got out.
Okay, so you were still in.
For 1 day.
How, with of course this conversation escalating to a bigger point, how has the sort of transition been for you
It's been pretty rough. It's kind of hard because I try to look online and like veteran forums to gauge like, am I feeling normal for what's going on? And the answer is yes. It kind of took me a while because I knew a lot of other people getting out at the same time as me who had just like their whole life lined up in a nice, pretty, graph for them to follow. I thought I did, and things didn't. I mean, I wouldn't say didn't work out the way that they did, but my expectations were vastly different than what was coming to me getting out.
What do you think that, before we talk about what it is, what did you envision it would look like?
I thought I was going to come home to my hometown where, when I remember going in, like everyone basically talks about their hometowns and what they like about it or their home state. And I remember saying Cadillac, Michigan. So many nice things.
Podcast is a safe place to shit talk Cadillac, Michigan. Let me tell you.
I would say so many nice things. Like everyone's so nice. There's so much to do. The nature's beautiful. I love swimming, and there's lakes everywhere. Mm-hmm. All these things, all these events, I guess traditions too. And like after leaving, meeting people from all over the country, living across the country, and going across the world and meeting people from those countries and like learning about their cultures and just. I don't know. It's been a lot of fun, like just exploring the different cultures and subcultures of America.
Yeah.
And coming back to Cadillac, I thought that things would change for the better, I guess, socially. But as you can tell from certain social media pages for the community and just walking around or interacting with people, there's still quite a lot of hate.
It's still Cadillac.
It's still Cadillac. It's just, I don't know. It's just not my cup of tea without saying anything too mean. I just can't handle the overt hate.
Can I ask why was coming back to Cadillac like a convenience thing?
Yeah, pretty much. Getting out, first thing we really wanted to have was a support system, and our families live there. So
okay.
And having both our families there has been amazing. Just being able to say like, hey, grandma, can I stop by? And
and grandparents, well, good parents want to be grandparents.
Yes.
So
and so it's like that aspect, that's like the most positive thing. And we're actually looking at moving next year at some point downstate.
Yeah.
And
not here downstate.
Not here. Probably like near Kalamazoo-ish.
Okay.
We'll see.
It's close enough to Grand Rapids.
We spent our 4th down there and it was amazing. So a lot of great things. And also a lot of things for him to do.
Why?
For Rolly to do.
Maybe this isn't relevant, but why there?
We wanted, I guess, just the plus sides of both big and small town feels without the problems of big and small town.
Yeah.
And being down in like Kalamazoo Portage area was just like the nice sweet spot. We were trying really hard to like not give that part of the state benefit of the doubt. We're like, we're gonna be critical. Like if we're gonna stay here for a while, we need to make sure that it can, give us everything we want and more.
Right. Totally disconnected from your reason for being there. That's sort of why Grand Rapids was what I chose. Was like I was way too small town, Lake City, Cadillac for the first 22, 23, 24 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to New York, which was way too big. Like went from a town of 1,000 to Cadillac, which was 10,000, to New York, which was 8.5 million people.
Right.
Grand Rapids felt like a solid mix of like the parts of New York that I enjoyed with the semblance of small town that we grew up in. But it's definitely proving to not be what I thought it would be.
Right.
I enjoy it, and this is totally different from like a military family to a creative nerd guy.
Right.
But like I could see myself being here for a while because of that fact. It was a nice, like, this is a nice transition into what will inevitably be whatever my next move is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you gotta suss out where you're going aside from just like, this would be a fun year. It's like, well, what am I gonna do while I'm there?
Exactly.
So like Kalamazoo, well, okay, let's just move away from the Kalamazoo thing. Let's more talk about still the transition to civilian life.
Right. But yeah, I imagine myself like getting back to this wonderful, beloved town that I held in my heart for so long, and getting a job in IT, which I did for a little bit, but kind of dropped out of just for mental health reasons. Mm-hmm. And also transition was pretty rocky. So I guess talking more on that, they don't really help you understand what is so different about you in the military world versus what you have to do to adjust to the civilian world. And it sounds really dumb, but like one of those things is that like you have everything explained to you and planned out for you in the military. Like everything you will do for your day, what you will wear, what you will eat, everything is done for you. And like even like having some of those freedoms back, which is great, it can be kind of daunting to make those decisions again, especially when it comes down to like understanding more complex things that you didn't have to deal with in the military, like getting insurance.
Yeah.
Didn't know how that worked as a young adult. I just, joined the Air Force and then, hey, here's your insurance. If you get blown up or something, just go to the doctor and they'll fix it all and don't, pay anything. You're fine.
Right. That's
all I had to worry about. Now it's like, okay, bronze plan, catastrophic plan versus the platinum. What do I do?
Why? I'm sorry but at least 10 minutes of this has been about insurance. But why? I guess my understanding does the VA have its own insurance plan? Like, why are you no longer on the insurance is it just because you're not?
Because I'm not in the military anymore.
I guess that's a thing that, if not just me, I have to imagine many people did not realize. I thought like once you're in the military and you've served X amount of time and you're honorably discharged, like
they tell you that you won't have TRICARE unless you like say you become like a guard or reservist, then you can pay a little bit of money for like TRICARE Select. It's a whole different thing, but like
you're still paying into a premium.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then but like it's a lot better than, anything else you could really get.
Sure.
But like getting out there just like, yeah, your job will give you insurance.
That's fucked.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm working in a salaried position. I'm going to get insurance. And
is your current, without being too specific, is your current career in any way relevant to what you were doing in the military?
No. So I'm not working right now, actually.
Okay. Well, you were doing like some IT stuff.
Yeah, I was basically a traveling IT guy.
Okay.
It was not like anything I did in the military. Basically, I was like, this stuff is not hard. You just have to know how to use Google or ask the right questions, or like if you can figure out how to troubleshoot something, you can do IT. And that's basically what they hired me off of. And it was good. I did a decent job at it, I would say. Like I did have to ask a lot of questions when things got out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Or if I couldn't like Google foo it. But I'm trying to think of where I was going with that. But it kind of bothered me at a certain point when I was like the lowest paid field IT guy. Yeah. But I'm also being asked, because of my experience creating academic material, to start creating new training documents for people that we were hiring that would then just get like paid more than me instantly. Did not like that. But
so I'm going to separate two things, college and military here, but there's an air? Is that what I'm looking for? There's a vibe that when like college graduates come into a job and they feel underappreciated, their vibe is like, well, what did I have this whole education for?
Right.
Without trying to lead you here, have you, giving you full permission to feel this, have you felt appreciated at any point as a veteran?
Not a whole lot, to be honest. Like, I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. Like, you do a lot of things, and like when I was in, like, I definitely said yes to a lot of things and let myself get walked all over a lot. But
post-military career?
In the military.
Okay.
But I got to do a lot of amazing things and have a lot of opportunities to do things that people will never do.
Yeah.
And I would say like I'm very proud of everything I've done, but I don't use it as like a way to measure myself to others. But like in terms of like, I guess applying to jobs or speaking to people about it, or they're like, what'd you do in the military? And I can explain it in the most 5-year-old language ever, and people still just don't really care to understand. Sure. They're just like, oh, so you just like read a lot and then point at maps and look at pictures of planes. And I'm like, I guess, yeah. I mean, if you want to put it that way.
If you simplify it that way, though. But there's also like, so the of course, like in at least semi-recent history, the biggest example was like when Vietnam vets came home. Like, well, I mean, this is not directly what I'm leading towards, but like they came home to a country that didn't support what they were doing in the first place, even though they were just following. Many of them were just following orders. I don't mean like that you're coming into Cadillac and you're like, look at what I did, especially because you weren't a combat veteran.
No.
Right? Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I knew that, but also I just wanted to say for the camera, you weren't a combat
Most
veteran.
people aren't.
But there's still a lot that you had to do to let go of, to be a part of, for lack of a better phrase, and I don't mean this insulting way, you were like a sort of a cog in a machine.
Oh yeah.
You were part of a process that like you'd hope as an outsider that people could appreciate when you come back to. Have you found, and again, knowing full well that you know what you and I have talked about through text, have you found any sort of support system that appreciates what you're going through?
I would really say it just comes down to people who make an effort to understand. Like, I know you do a lot of that. Leah and like the rest of my family, who, I mean, I have a bunch of veterans in my family, they understand what you do, what you have to do, and the sacrifices you make. And like, really, a lot of your time in the military is all about sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And that's just something that people don't really understand. Yeah. They just see like, oh, you're in the military. This is just like Full Metal Jacket. You just have a funny haircut and wear camo, and it's like,
you did do those things, but it's not all you are.
Yeah. And so that's kind of like, that's the big difference, is finding people who want to understand, versus just, oh, you're a veteran. God bless you. I love the troops.
Sure.
Here's 10%.
Here's a free ice cream or something.
Yeah. Here's 10% off your, meal for one day of the year. Kind of thing. And so, I guess I didn't know what to expect when I came back to Cadillac, but I knew growing up the town really liked veterans, and like my great uncle was part of the honor guard and all these things. So I like grew up seeing all these military traditions and people being there waving flags and, just showering people with affection. I didn't really expect that or even want that, but I figured people would be like, give me the time of day.
Yeah.
But
how do you think that?
And even like sorry.
No, that's okay. Continue.
Even going to like our AMVETS and our American Legion, not really great support. But when I went to either of them, and I guess I still am a member of my AMVETS in town, our AMVETS in town, the reception I got at the American Legion was very like, okay, why are you here? What do you need? I'm like, I just wanted to meet veterans in town. I wanted to connect with people who could, we'd share experiences. We all trauma bond, right? And they were just like, well, if you want to go talk to someone else, go here. And so
there's also an outsider, and I'm only speaking of my own experience, but there's an outsider's point of view that the American Legion is just where all the old vets go to have their beers.
It pretty much is like that. Some legions are really nice. Like they do a lot for people and for the community and for veterans, but ours is just a place to get chili, hot dogs, and beer for cheap.
Sure.
The AMVETS is a little more, I guess, updated than the one in town. But when I went there, people were like talking to me more, and I was like, okay, this is awesome. Like, people they gave me a beer for free. People were like, what'd you do, man? How long were you in? And as soon as people started asking about what I did for my job, being in intelligence, I was like, oh crap, this is not a good idea, because I started getting, all these guys are much older than me, like 50 and older. I started just getting bombarded with questions about, was the election rigged? Blah, blah, blah. What did Putin do to this, this election? Or how does he interfere with this? Like, what are we going to expect? War? What's World War III? Things like that, or like worried about Iran and stuff like that at a time when they weren't really a hot topic.
Yeah.
Just conspiracy theory things. And I'm like, I just came here to talk and hang out. I didn't really want to get political, but.
If you, Joe Safago, have listened to the podcast, great. If you haven't, so be it. It's not relevant. To listeners of the podcast, the phrase imposter syndrome comes up a lot. Are you familiar with it as a concept?
Yeah. So I guess the idea that like you don't feel like you should be in the position you are in.
Yeah. Oftentimes that's related to creatives. Like, I'm a photographer among a bunch of other photographers. I think I suck. I'm an imposter. They're going to find out soon. Does that general feeling translate as a veteran? Like, especially as a non-combat veteran? that like you can take, and I'm sorry to lead you here, but like you can take pride in the work that you did when you like interact with some of the old guns or like even the people who like are serving now. Like, do you feel any imposter syndrome in that way?
A little bit. I guess I feel it in the sense that like I've been told like, oh, you can't go to the VFW because you didn't, like, basically like you didn't kill anyone to go to the desert is what they told me. I've also been told I wasn't a real veteran. I was like,
you've been told that?
Yeah,
by a veteran?
Yes, they're like, you didn't kill anyone. Basically, is what they said. Chalked it up to that. But I mean, I don't care.
I believe you that you don't care, but I hope you know you're allowed to care. That
I know.
Sucks.
But it's such a like when veterans get into these like pissing contests about their service and what they did and who's more important. You know, I could come up and swing the bat too, just like you. But it doesn't make. I feel like it doesn't make you less of a service member for not shooting someone or being in the desert or whatever. But people take a lot of pride in that. I personally don't care. I did my own variety of cool things that I'm proud of. So I'm, and it's not like a show off thing. It's just like if I went back in time to like right before I joined, or even as a kid, and I told myself the things that I did and where I went, I would like not believe myself. I'd be like, no, you didn't.
And you'd come away with a little bit of pride.
Yeah.
Do you let yourself feel that pride now?
Now I do. It took me a little while to like, especially when I was in like the things I did, I knew the impact of what I was doing, but I like was just like, you know what, this is just my job. Like everyone else's job, they're supposed to do these things. But it took me a while to like kind of come around and be like, no, these are special things, and you should own it. And so now I do own it. But I guess when it comes to imposter syndrome, like looking back, like, at my little office desk area in my house, I have like, a couple of my awards up. I have my coin collection in front of us in all my patches. I have like a ton of patches, and I see that and I'm like, did I really do all that? Was that real? Just not fully understanding sometimes like the things I did for so long. Like sometimes it feels just like a fever dream.
How long was your service?
6 years.
6 years? Holy shit. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So maybe this sentence stays in, but depending on the answer, very well, this portion that I'm about to say could be cut. You've been talking to me a little bit about like some people that are close to you who do not walk away with that same sense of acceptance or pride. And we could get into the most extreme cases of those particular people if you want to talk about it in any degree. But like talking about that like support system, are you close with, or do you talk with people who are having some bigger problems than you adjusting to civilian life?
No, everyone that I've talked to that I've gotten out with, they're like on it. They're killing it, which is great. And nobody really wants to hear from someone who's just like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up kind of talk. So
sure.
I would say really in my own personal bubble, I'm like the person who's struggling most about the transition out of the military. But I guess I see people online say like, I've been out for X amount of time. I feel like a loser. I'm about to go homeless, things like that. And so I see that and I think like, I'm not in that position, which is good, but also like it could very easily happen because it does very easily happen to other veterans.
Do you want, or rather, could you talk a little bit about more specific struggles? Like we've talked about like, finding hobbies as a civilian or whatever, but like what's some of that like under the surface stuff that you're like having a tough time with?
I guess the big thing is everyone always mentions camaraderie, but like even the way you talk to people or you make friends or even like coming back home to your old friends, it is not what I expected. I was kind of led to believe from a lot of people like I would be, I guess we would all be close, the gang's back kind of thing again. And it's
like hometown friends?
Or, yeah, hometown friends. Like coming back home, like everyone's been preparing for this for so long, like waiting for me to get back. And then I get back and nothing happens. It's very isolating to see yourself not only be for like, you're out of sight, out of mind when I'm in Alaska or whatever part of the country I'm in, but like back home, still being ignored. It's very isolating. Like, yeah, I guess the way to put it is just it's just very isolating. Even people have known for so long to just kind of push you off because I don't know, going to bingo at Sally's is more important, or like what else is going on in their lives. And we are all adults now, fully grown adults, so we have things going on too, which I totally understand. I did for a while,
but you were also,
but now
you were a kid when you went in. 23 is still a kid.
I was 20.
Wait, you're 26?
I was 20 when I went in, and now I'm 27.
Okay, I guess I thought
it's been a year since I got it.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so definitely that even proves my point even more. You were a kid when you went in.
Yeah, and so I guess coming back, like those relationships are all very different now.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Just being isolated, and also just talking to people in general. My formative years as an adult, like the final years of my brain fully developing, were in the military, and all my experiences were in the military, and so. Like I have some friends, like one of my friends, he's a veteran too. We were at the same base together. He was in it for just as long as me. We get each other really well because we went through basic at a similar time. We went to the same base. Like this
is not a hometown friend who went with you.
This is someone I met who just happened to also be from Michigan, and we get along great because we have all these shared experiences and we can talk about them and not have to spend so much time, teaching each other what these things mean or trying to wrap our head around the concept of like, wait, you had to wear whitey tidies for 2 months kind of thing, just weird stuff like that. Versus now, even when I talk to my friends I've known since I was a child, there's just no desire to understand. And even talking to people who were outside of my own circle, I didn't go to college and I'm not doing anything very cool or interesting and I'm not making a ton of money. So it's not really worth their time to remember.
Sure.
I get kind of that sentiment a lot when meeting new people.
To what degree, not to invalidate your experience, but to what degree do you think that's your perception and how much of that is truth?
I would say it's probably a lot of my perception. I definitely am very critical of myself, even still.
Yeah.
To this day, like I used to be very like critical of myself when I was younger, but even now I'm like looking more, I guess not so much the physical appearance, but like when I'm saying and how I'm explaining my thoughts, am I making sense? I feel like I am, but at the same time, like, do they just not care? Or do they just not want to hear it? Do they not understand? What is the issue?
When you were in the military, and I want to be very careful to not conflate just regular, everyday, normal stress with PTSD, but like when you were in the military, did you feel like you were subjected to things, even if it's just psychological or just conditioning? Because like you said, everything is set up for you. You're told what to do. Your day is scheduled out. Your plan, like you're not making those minute by minute decisions. Like, to what degree when you got out was like, how much of a problem was that for you? Or is it still for you to like, what do I do with myself today when I roll out of bed? Like how I'm sorry to be pointed, I guess. I don't know.
I guess now, like a year out, it's not so bad. But definitely like when I first got out and I wasn't working and like we were settled in our house, everything was done. It was just kind of like, what do we do? Mm-hmm. Like, I guess, for example, I worked a lot and I didn't really take leave or like PTO at all. Like when I got out, I basically had like over 3 years of PTO saved up. And
the military?
Yeah.
You get PTO in the military?
Yeah. It's actually it's better than most jobs.
What?
Yeah.
And you get like paid out if you don't use it? Sorry.
No,
I'm not asking about paycheck.
So you can, in the Air Force, you can sell back up to 60 days.
Okay.
And basically each day is 1 day of pay or 30 days is a whole paycheck. So I got 2 paychecks when I got out, which is cool. And then I had almost another 30 days on top of that. I just had to like kind of blow off just because I couldn't sell it.
I guess that's another like layer of civilian ignorance that like, I didn't know there was PTO. I thought there was like,
well, the thing
can see as the military, you're having a tough time. Let's give you the time off.
You would think that's how it worked. I mean, sometimes, depending on what's going on in the world or the workplace, you can take time off more often or more freely. I was just kind of in a unique spot to where I couldn't, or I felt like I could not because I didn't want to be behind on what was going on.
Sure. do you feel, because I know this is a big, just conjecturing, I imagine it's a big part of veterans or former veterans. Well, what's the word I'm looking for? People who are no longer on active duty. They feel out of the loop a lot, that like you were in the thick of it at the time. And now you're like, I don't know what's going on over there. I wish I knew. Like, do you feel that sometimes? Or are you glad that you're like ignorant to it now?
I definitely do get curious. I definitely do miss rolling into work early just to browse like essentially like top secret news.
Okay.
Just see what's going on in the world, and then kind of like comparing it to like, what did my Google News recommend me that morning, and what does it look like here? Sometimes there's a lot of differences, sometimes not.
And I think we've already mentioned this, but I guess now I'm talking to a listener, to people who didn't listen to the last episode. You worked in intelligence, so that's like literally what you did. Is like,
yeah,
like
so
you were informed. That was your job.
Basically, to the viewer listener, working in intelligence the way I worked, or like where I worked, basically I was there to do a lot of research and create academics for fighter pilots so that they would know how to deal with certain situations, or basically, just reduce their risk of making a poorly informed decision, or dying, really, what it comes down to, back at home. Deployed, it was different. So really, I would just be there to maintain awareness of what's going on, where we are operating, and then make sure that when they go out, they have as much information as possible, or relevant information, so that way when they get up in the air, they don't make any mistakes or cause anything to happen that's bad.
Well, and this picking up on that like disconnect from like when you go back to civilian life, my understanding is that's why a lot of people go back, is because like they came home, they thought it was going to be one way, and even though they didn't necessarily enjoy their time in the military, and I'm not saying this was your particular situation, but they're like, I at least knew what I was going to do. And I miss that so much that people just are desperate to go back because it's some semblance of familiarity. Like, do you think you're in any way at risk of that? Not at risk.
No, I know what you mean. I would say like I liked what I did because of the sense of purpose it gave me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm here learning all these things. I'm integrated with training our fighter pilots, like training the best F-35 squadron in the world, as well as keeping them safe when we go overseas, making sure that if they have to punch out of the jet, we can find them. There's a lot of like purpose in there. Like I guess it's instilled from you since you're in tech school for that training. Like, I remember doing the exact same thing in tech school in this final exercise that I did deployed. Like, not that anything bad happened when I was deployed in real life, but in the that final exercise, it's like you've got like hundreds of people working together in this like fake world event.
Yeah.
And I was in charge of sending fighters out.
You mean like a simulation?
The whole thing is simulated, but it's made to look, it's very realistic.
Okay.
I guess. I mean, it's...
Well, like training operations are like you're operating as if something's actually happening. That's the only way you can learn.
Yeah, it's just a way for you to demonstrate your skills that you've learned for the 6 months you're there. And I was in charge of the same thing. Like, you send fighters out to go, blow up some objectives and then fly back home. But you have to make sure you inform them of every single threat that's out there. Even if you do it perfectly, you're guaranteed to have a pilot die. Like, they make sure that, like they'll come back with like only 2 dudes will walk back instead of 3 after their mission's done. They'll be like, hey, you didn't make it, blah, blah, blah. You forgot to tell them about this missile here. So it's like one of those things. And like, at that point, they're like, you need to write a letter home to his family. Like, that kind of purpose is like
really
drilled into you. And so like working in a fighter squadron after that, it's kind of like you're there to make sure that they are successful in not only achieving the objective, but like getting home.
So let's pick up on that then, because again, maybe this is just civilian ignorance. When you associate the term PTSD with a veteran, you think of someone who's boots on the ground, shooting and killing people, or flying the plane or whatever. Being quote unquote responsible for someone's death on the intelligence side of things is enough to traumatize someone.
Yeah, I mean, we all know now that PTSD isn't limited to people who have their legs blown off.
Yeah.
Like, people go through a lot of different things, and develop that based on their experiences. I don't know if I would say I would have it. I don't know. Getting out, I'm still learning a lot about myself.
Sure.
Hopefully with the VA, I'll be able to talk to someone soon. Really the big thing for me was like my anxiety. Definitely. I'd say like
Anxiety of the job or of the lack of the job? Like,
I just have a lot of anxiety in general.
Yeah.
Getting out. I'm also a little more irritable, I guess. I've never been an angry person, and now I like driving. I will sometimes find myself just like, white knuckling the steering wheel, like, let's go.
Like when you're merging into Grand Rapids 131 traffic.
I didn't get that mad. It was fine today, but
do you know I'm a fucking veteran?
But
no, I think maybe that's a lapse. Even though like I'm sure many people understand that PTSD, like you said, isn't limited to just people who get their legs blown off, but like the intelligence side of that isn't just like you're looking at ones and zeros and communicating that and turning that into, whatever. It's like you're actually responsible for a lot of people's lives.
Yeah. I mean, it's the whole reason we're there. I guess looking at like 9/11, for example, before that, the intelligence community, which we hear a lot, that said a lot now in the media, the intelligence community was really just a bunch of organizations that would work together kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed after 9/11 because people were basically not sharing information because they wanted to catch the big bad guy. They wanted that golden goose, get more funding, just advance their own whatever they're trying to achieve.
Like as in the individual branches of the military? Like
Not the branches of the military, but intelligence agencies.
Okay.
So like, let's just say like CIA has this piece and the FBI had this and the NGA has this. And, people have these pieces and they're not talking to each other or communicating effectively.
Because they want the glory, is what you're saying? Or like,
and the funding.
Okay.
This is what I was told from my instructor, who's been in for he was retired as an intelligence officer. And, based on what we see now in the media too, and how each of those agencies interact with each other, it's pretty apparent. Like, yeah, they were just trying to get their name out there and get money from the government.
This is also, I want to express, this is David's opinion, not Joe's opinion. Joe is simply sitting by. I don't want to put you in a compromising position, but this is also where like the intelligence agencies, quote unquote, control over the media is pretty fucked. Again, this is just conjecture, civilian conjecture of a dude who reads shit on the internet. But like, maybe I don't even want to take you down that road.
Okay,
I don't want to put you.
That's another episode.
Yeah, I don't want to subject you to that. This is just. I don't want to put you in the path of conspiracy theories.
Right.
But yeah. If we're honing in on the intelligence agency's selfishness, control of the media helps that with. I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna back away.
I will say, like, since then though, it's been kind of forced amongst the entire intelligence community that everyone talk to each other.
You're saying? I thought you were saying the opposite. I thought you were saying that since 9/11, the agencies became more selfish.
No. The total opposite.
Okay.
Information is much more free flowing between everyone.
Okay.
Which is great because we can get more done.
I think my optics of what you were saying is that because X agency saw Y agency's lapse of judgment, they're like, fine, then this is ours now.
Everyone was out there vying for their own piece of the pie.
Okay.
And now it is a much more joint effort.
Okay.
So it's a lot better now. But I'm trying to remember my original point with that.
I'm trying to make sure that I'm just looking at my note here. I think we're just more specifically talking about the like I mean, I know we were talking about PTSD. We're not necessarily talking about what it's like to have PTSD, but this is why when people get out on the non-combat side, that they feel responsible for X decisions, even though they weren't the boot on the ground. Just for the listener, I think maybe we were talking about something completely separate, but we were just talking off camera about something else. One of the things that I experience when I go back home is this, like, to a much smaller degree than you ever could. I want people to reach out to me. I don't want to feel like I have to like update them on my life to be like, hey, can I tell you about what I'm going through or what I've done or whatever?
Right.
So without mentioning the specifics, Joe was just saying like, oh, did you get any comments or hear anything about your particular episode? And I was telling him that there are some people from back home that him and I both mutually know who commented and were like, it's good to hear Joe's voice or that kind of stuff. But like, if I may put you on the spot, Joe said like, well, I'm home now. They could just talk to me. Like,
I am home now.
Yeah. And I know we kind of touched on this a little bit, but like, what's your like relationship to that kind of disappointment? I know we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but like, are there people who you have been like anxiously anticipating getting in touch with you that just haven't?
No,
and maybe that's a little too pointed,
like,
but
I will say to like, I guess everyone's benefit has been awaiting my grand return. I've been playing it really low key since I got back. Like, obviously my hair is
luscious.
My hair is this
luscious
beard, and so most people don't recognize me when they see me.
Okay.
So I just kind of like, if people don't wave at me, I just kind of am like, you know, I'll give them a look or like a head nod or whatever, and if no one picks up that's me, I just kind of keep going. I've even had family members who are just like, you know, like cousins or whatever, and I'm just like, hey, what's up? And they're like,
Jim,
who is this weirdo? So like, I'm not doing it to be mean. It's just like, you know, I've been gone for so long.
Sure.
I get it if people are just not interested in talking to me. So,
but you also went into the military when people our age were like going to college or like initially starting their families or something. So like, the paths in a small town are very linear until you leave, and then they just the gap grows.
Yeah, that's true.
How is that? Maybe this is too broad question, but like, let's refocus on that like gap a little bit. Like, what has been your relationship to reconnecting with people? Do you feel like you're hesitant to reach out to people? Do you feel like you're anxious to reach out to people? Like,
definitely both.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard just to like disappear from people's lives and vice versa, and then just come back and be like, so do you want to like talk or hang out? Like, you can't just like pick up where you left off, because it's like, oh, the last time I talked to whoever, like last time I talked to you, I was like 19.
We're different people.
Like in person, like 19.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, even people working in the theater, like, hey, remember when I was 16 and we would be stupid at the movie theater and eat popcorn all day? I'm not 16 anymore and I don't eat popcorn all day, but like,
we still hang.
You know, it feels kind of weird just to like awkwardly shuffle back or whatever. And also like coming back to with like specific people who were like looking forward to me and I was looking forward to come back to them, and like bugging them like, hey, let's hang out, let's do anything, and not getting a response. I'm just kind of like, I don't really want to be annoying. I don't want to get my hopes up.
Yeah. I could relate to that outside of your personal experience, just wanting to reconnect with people who seem to have no real interest in it. I guess, again, I'll ask kind of the same relative question that I asked before. To what degree is that your perception, and how much of that do you think is the truth? Like, do you think that you're being rejected, or do you think that you're feeling rejected?
I definitely feel rejected.
Yeah.
I guess I'd have to step outside of boundaries and ask them awkwardly about it.
Do you think you have the capacity to do that with people?
I do believe I do. I have the confidence to do so, but do I have the patience to sit through whatever answer I get? Probably not. I'll probably still be kind of miffed about it.
And would you believe their answer if it wasn't what you thought it was?
I don't know. I think it comes down to my own, like, again, perception of myself and thinking like, you know, you're only busy for so long. Like, hey, you got out of work early, or hey, you're doing nothing. Like, let's go do something. Let's go walk around the lake. Let's do whatever. And so I'm just kind of like at a point where like, I don't care what your excuse is. Like, I'm kind of done asking. Just let me know when you're free. I am free all the time, kind of thing.
So to maybe pick up a little bit on what we were talking about before, like this sense of community or whatever, we have the cool, unique experience of like, we grew up in a small town, so it was kind of easy to make relationships because you're kind of forced to, because it's small town, you're like small graduation
I'm going to see your face for the next 18 years.
Exactly. A lot of people come out of their, or into their 20s with some naivety that like, I'm always going to be in touch with these people. And then by the end of their 20s, they're like, oh, even if I'm in the same town, like we were only talking because we had to, not because we wanted to. How do you think going forward, without putting too much pressure on you to feel like you have to, whatever, how do you think that you're going to make connections with new people that you've never met in the future, aside from just bumping into them at the grocery store?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
I'll say, like, working so much at the end of my service, like the people I worked with, I was closest with. And I didn't really have much opportunity to, like, especially after having a kid, like outside of work, to like go out and like meet new people. Like if I met new people, they were either new coworkers of Aaliyah's or it was someone new in my shop. So, you know, I only knew them as work people. And if they were an officer, because I'm enlisted, it's a whole different relationship or dynamic. Yeah. Whereas like enlisted people can be friends with pretty much everyone.
Do you think that you had people in your life who don't know that you feel this way, that might just be waiting? This is just projection. That might be like waiting for you to reach out because they feel like they might be bothering you if they reach out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I think that is somewhat true. Maybe again, it doesn't. We won't know until we ask these people.
Sure.
I could see it being a possibility, but again, I don't know. And I've already said my words. Like, I'm flexible. Just let me know whenever you're available.
Sure. Okay. I want to be very cautious in the way that I approach this next topic.
42.
42. That's right. It is the answer to everything, but is it the answer to this? How many penises do you have? 42. He was 42. Right. Okay. I kind of wish that I wouldn't have said that in relation to what I kind of want to talk about here.
Okay.
But knowing full well that we can just stop talking about this particular point. Pardon me as I look to find the way to say this. Focusing in on like the sense of community thing. There are a lot of people who come home who either think, accept, believe, or know that they don't have a community, especially coming out of the military, who, like I said, either go back or feel, this is a very hard turn here, so I apologize, or who feel so alone that they, like, you know, at the most extreme examples, take their own lives out of the military. Okay. And without talking on specifics of anybody that you know, unless you feel comfortable, we've talked about like your anxiety and your desire to build community or rebuild community. But when it comes to like the loneliness, how is your particular mental health? And can you talk a little bit about, without specifically mentioning names, some stories that you have heard of people that you served with who don't have that community to come home to? Like,
I kind of can. So I guess in regards to myself, it's pretty hard. It's being pretty lonely. And like, you know, I live close to downtown. I can walk out my door, look down any one of the streets. I look towards Mitchell and see where, like, you know, people out and about. Social media is terrible. I try to stay off as much as possible because I'm like seeing everyone do all these things, and now I'm back home not doing anything cool. And it's kind of hard because I want to do a lot of things, and like thankfully, like it's very easy to travel with Roland and Aaliyah, so we do a lot of stuff, which is a lot of fun. Like they're everything to me. But like in terms of having like a friend, like friendships or social, like I guess gatherings or anything like that, it's kind of, it feels hard. You know, I put in a lot of effort when I first got back to meet with a lot of people, and I just kind of got pushed off a lot. So I'm just kind of, I would say just giving up on that. Like if someone extends the offer to me, I will gladly take it because I can and I want to. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like I'm just kind of, I feel like I'm just waiting out time before we move downstate, and then I feel like I can kind of clean slate, meet new people. I guess sort of like the military all over again, but it'll probably be more limited to like people I meet at work.
Right.
So I would say that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's hard. It sucks, but I do have I do have some good friends in the military still who talk to me.
Okay.
And they're also kind of like my rock too. Like they get it. They get me. I get them. We, all work together. We're didn't, and it's they've been great. So to any of you who might be seeing this, thank you. You're wonderful. But as for other people coming home, like personally, people that came home, I don't really know anyone who's had like a terrible time. I know a couple people who like have come home to go to school for something or work in a certain area or field, and it doesn't work out, so they just switch it up. But I feel like, at least for enlisted people, it's a little bit harder coming back home because you, as an adult, have not been in the real world as much as, say, an officer who has to go, has to have a 4-year degree, which most people are like ROTC or go through college to get that to go into the military as an officer. So they already know people from their school, their hometown, any clubs that they're part of, and then they go in the military and like they know people from their officer training school and all over the military, and they're still connected to people outside of it because they're not just like my whole bubble going through the military was just like, okay, I know people in Cadillac and I know people in the military, versus officers usually have a lot more breadth in knowing people. So
to the listeners, to the viewers, battery just died. I'm going to go with my bad on that. But as difficult as a transition as I can make as some sort of show host, I think, like I said to you just a second ago, I think maybe if I were to lead you a little bit, one of the things that I'm trying to maybe touch on a little bit is, without talking about specifics or names, as I've already mentioned to you, you are at least intimately familiar with some situations where people come home, feel this lack of community, feel this lack of acceptance, who, not to say that you're doing perfectly or whatever, but like who aren't adjusting as well. I'm sorry to put it on your shoulders, but like, can you touch on that a little bit? Like what they're, I'm sorry, this is difficult here. I'm trying to be respectful of the situation, but also like,
you can say whatever you want.
Well, I don't know what I want to say. I more just want to like ask, but not be selfish in the way that like, I guess I'm sorry to put this on your shoulders here, but you kind of know what I'm leading towards without saying, take it away, Joe. Like, okay, let's go with this. Are you in contact with people who are having a difficult time adjusting, and without mentioning their specifics or like their names or anything like that, broadly, what are their experiences?
I would say I know a few people who have some difficulty not out of the service but in the service.
Okay.
And it's kind of the same thing. Not really a lot of community where they're at, or they feel isolated because of whether it's their job, their shift, the location they live in, no access to family. Time difference might cause them not be able to talk to family.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say like that's something that definitely affects a lot of people, especially at more difficult to live bases. So like at my base, which was in the middle of Alaska, near Fairbanks, it's pretty isolating there if you're not like the ultimate outdoorsman and have participate in every single club that's out there. If you're just trying to do your own thing or get by, it's pretty difficult. And so like at that base in particular, we see a lot of people go through a lot, and a lot of people like to attribute it to seasonal depression.
Okay.
And you can get very quickly prescribed like vitamin D supplements.
I'm sorry, can you touch on that? The what depression?
Seasonal.
Oh, you said seasonal depression. Okay.
So again, Alaska, middle of Alaska.
Yeah. Not a lot of.
It's not a lot of sunlight in the winter, and people think that once the sun comes up, things will get better. And doesn't, because usually there's another underlying issue they haven't taken care of. And so a lot of people tend to go through a lot mentally. We have a lot of suicide attempts up there and a lot of completed suicides. I guess, for example, I was a suicide awareness rep for my squadron. So I would just try to educate people on resources they can use, or at least if someone's in duress, you can at least, the bare bones to get someone help. And I remember I was talking to one of our security forces guys there who had been in, almost as long as me, still a kid. Like he came in right out of high school at 17. And, he's like 22, 23 and working on that base for, I think he was there for 2.5 years, 2 years at the time. Imagine you're 20 and you responded to over a dozen like completed suicides and many other attempted. Like it's a serious problem up there. And for a lot of veterans back home too, it kind of comes down to like those things, like the sun comes up, but things don't change. It's kind of the same thing there for veterans who commit suicide when they come home, or they're struggling with these issues and they expect that once they get home, once they get this new car, once they get this new toy, once, X, Y, or Z is done, they think that it will just make things better. It'll fix their problems. It'll fix their anger. And it doesn't.
There are, on the civilian side of things, there's of course like tropish stories of like therapists who really sincerely care for their patients. They're dealing with suicidal ideations, depression, who then lose their patients to suicide, who carry that burden a little bit. Do you think you carry any burden? Like I guess I could maybe talk to me a little bit specifically about being like a suicide rep.
I wasn't the rep for long. I did help 2 people. Like I don't want to toot my own horn or anything like that, but like I've helped a couple people personally not take their lives. And I wouldn't say I take home a burden, but I definitely like, I don't know how to put it. It definitely feels like, like it feels real at that point. Like for people who haven't been in that situation, like my first, like you hear about it, you think about like the things I tell you, like, oh yes, remember the ask, care, escort model of taking care of someone who wants to kill themselves. That it doesn't matter when someone's sitting in front of you, like, I want to go home and blow my face off.
Yeah.
So it definitely hits you in a different way.
Do they?
And then,
sorry, from the education side of that, do they teach you that kind of thing in like an algorithmic way?
In basic training, they tell you like, remember ACE, ask, care, escort. It's very basic, but there's a lot more now. Like when I got in 7 years ago to when I was the suicide awareness rep, a little over a year ago, a lot has changed, which is good. And it's kind of interesting, like educating people on it, because a lot of the people I were educating were just were officers, and so a lot of them have they get paid very well. They don't really have the same issues. They're not children anymore, or I guess I won't say children, but they're not so young that they struggle doing adult things.
Sure.
And so these they don't have the same issues that most people that commit suicide in the military are junior enlisted airmen. They don't have the same issues, but it's interesting to phrase it in a way like you're going to be someone's commander one day. You're going to be in charge of real human beings. You need to be aware of this so that this doesn't happen. Like, this is a problem here. For the education side of it. So it's a lot better now. It's a lot more, I would say it's not as, it doesn't dance around the fact that people want to kill themselves. Yeah. But I guess on the other side of like talking about those burdens again, I would say I wouldn't consider it so much a burden as like when someone dies, but you kind of just carry a piece with them with you. And I don't know how other people deal with it, but I think about these people every day. I've kind of immortalized them in my brain, and I don't know why. It's kind of I don't know. Maybe it's messed up. Maybe it's not. I write down their names, their full name in my phone. I have a list of people that I know have died, and so I think about them every day. But every once in a while, look at that and just like seeing their name. Like I haven't seen it since it was in this email or this article or this obituary. Because it's, I don't know, it feels more respectful.
Do you think that part of that, do you think you allow part of that to be for you, or is it more you're trying to honor them? Like, do you think it's something that helps you like stay grounded and remind you of your experiences?
I think part of it's for me. I don't want to forget them.
Okay.
Not that I would, but at the same time, it's just having that reminder, like these people are out there. There are other people who could need help.
Do you think that some of that, and if I get the term wrong, correct me, please. You're saying was the role or suicide rep? Is that what you're saying?
Suicide awareness representative.
Suicide awareness representative. Okay. Does that in any way translate to having the ability to not be a psychologist or a therapist?
No,
but
not
like,
at all.
Are they? So not at all.
No, my job is not to, walk people off a ledge. It's to educate others on the warning signs and what they should do in the event someone intends to harm themselves.
Okay.
It was not my job to help those people, but I was, I guess, the only person they had to help them out of their situation.
Can you talk about some of the warning signs that you're like that one should look out for, or is that more like
I mean, there'll be the kinds of things you'll learn about, say, from like a PSA on suicide awareness.
Okay, so
it's looking out for like, what are the changes in behavior. So for example, say like you guys go, like let's say you and your group of friends go to a bar every weekend, and all of a sudden you have a friend who's dropping out for no reason in particular, a reason you can't pin. You can't get them out of their house, or we know about like giving away things. We know about like I want to say like engaging in more risky behavior or disregarding the risk of a behavior. Things that they say that could be different. So one thing we talk about in the military is like people, like in my own plan that I made, like we make a lot of dark jokes to kind of put up with what we do every day, or
Sure.
It's pretty exhausting every day thinking like you're not thinking like dealing with life or death situations or something that could be life or death. And so it makes it easier just to joke around about it or talk about just like dying or whatever. Like, it's just a thing that we do.
It's comic relief. In the easiest sense.
Yeah.
But
and so it's trying to help people understand, like when someone says like, oh man, I don't want to go, do this additional duty. I'm going to like kill myself if I have to do that, versus seeing someone go like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Like, understanding the difference between someone just telling a joke or, a stupid joke versus someone who's genuinely like, it's just like a small cry for help.
Do you think that is something that anyone can kind of, how do I want to say this? If you're a suicide awareness rep, there's probably some overall education that goes into that. Like you're being trained on looking out for warning signs. It's not just like anybody can.
Pretty much. We aren't trained additionally on it. We're just made sure to know the definitions and what the models that they're asking us to use to instruct people are. I try to come at it from another angle where I say like, make sure you genuinely care when you talk to people, or like if you see someone and if it feels awkward to talk to someone, like you like don't let an awkward interaction stop you from saving someone's life.
Yeah.
I don't care how weird it would sound if you came up to your coworker and were like, are you going to hurt yourself? And if they say no, you can laugh it off and make a joke about it like you normally would. But for a lot of people, it's still like hard to get them past like the awkwardness stage of it. And so,
again, avoiding specifics. Have you had to put yourself in that position to like reach out to someone?
I've had to check on people. I haven't specifically walked up to someone and been like, you're acting kind of weird. Are you going to kill yourself? It's more of like someone I know who's already having a difficult time and just asking where they are mentally, like stopping the conversation and being like, how are you actually doing? Like, where are you right now? Have you talked to so-and-so yet? Have you done this? And I always preface it with like, I'm not going to make you do these things, but I just want you to get better.
Well, I think one of the objective truths to again, I'm coming at this from a civilian point of view, as someone who has wanted to kill himself in the past, who's come close. There's not a whole lot, and this, I'm touching on that burden thing. If a person has made up their mind, there's really not a whole lot that you can do other than be there. So like, there is this fear for some people who might see someone struggling or dealing with something like that, who even though they might not want to admit it, know that this person in front of them is a risk, and who are so worried about being responsible for being like the last person in the room or something like that, that they can't bring it upon themselves to like say something or reach out or see if they're okay. So I don't know if I'm even leading to a bigger point, or if I'm just saying that like, there also has to be an awareness that while it definitely takes courage to reach out to someone, it still might not always work, but it's still worth it to like check in. And
yeah, so I mean, it's, I guess, going off your point, like the people I was checking on, they'd already decided not to.
Okay.
Versus if someone had the intent or declared their intent to you, like yeah, I have this plan, I'm going to do this on this day, that's when it's your job to kind of intervene and say like, let's find a way to get you help. Like, no is not an option.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to let you go home, unlock your safe, load a weapon, and shoot yourself in the head. Like, I'm going to help you get help. That's the route that they want us to take, and that's the route that I've taken, helping people. That's what they tell us to do. I don't. What am I trying to say? It's never not like, again, you're just going to go through some really awkward or weird situations, mm-hmm. but the means of harm are there and the idea is there. It's now time to act.
Right.
And so what they really want us to do is get someone to get the help that they need with their consent, of course. But if they say like, nah, I'm going to do it anyway, like, you can't let them go.
Do you, Joe, think that you have the capacity for like advocacy programs these days? Like,
mentally nowadays, I don't know.
Yeah.
I also was a SAPR, volunteer victim advocate, so sexual assault prevention response.
Okay.
In the military as well, and it's pretty hard to do.
Are these things? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are these things like?
Those are things I volunteered for.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask.
And because I care about both those subject areas,
mm-hmm.
they're important, and obviously we know people who are affected by it, so it matters to me, even though when I give these big trainings to people, it might not matter to them because they're not in this scenario at all. What was I gonna say? But like, I think it would be incredible to be a part of an advocacy. I think it'd be really cool to help kids out in these areas, like with mental health, or I guess like one area is like healing private wounds in town.
Yep.
I haven't approached them yet. I've kind of had a hard time like getting out and just joining organizations in general, but things like that I do really care about. But mentally, I don't know if I can do that right now.
Okay, I'm gonna ask I think this is a decent way to maybe round this podcast out. And maybe it's just another one of those pointed questions that doesn't really have an answer, or at least the answer might be more complex than I want it to be, or than I think it might be. First of all, subjectively, do you think that you are better for the time that you served? I'm not asking like, do you have any regrets or anything like that, but like, what would the Joe who didn't enlist in the military look like versus the Joe in this room now? Like,
not good, I would say.
Yeah.
I remember, so my wake up call to do something else. So I went to college, I went to NNC, and I dropped out.
mm-hmm.
School's not for me. I was kind of on that train of like, if you don't go to college, you are either dumb or poor. And I didn't
I'm
want
dumb and poor.
I was already poor, and I didn't want to be dumb. So I tried to go to college. Didn't work out for me.
Sure.
And my wake up call was working in a factory in town, and my supervisor. I was 18 or 19 at the time. My supervisor, and I was a temp too, so no one gave a shit about me.
Might only be relevant to me. Can I ask which factory? Would you prefer not to say?
A certain.
Can you write it down? Because
Yeah, I'll write it down.
Yeah, I'm actually curious because I know that is. Oh shit. That is sort of one of the things about Cadillac.
I worked at 3 factories there, and they all don't give a shit about you. But this one in particular was.
That is, for a small town like Cadillac, so many people go into factory work because that's just about it. If you want a decent income, and decent,
not even.
No, not. I mean,
for example,
better than serving. I'm not military, like dishes, like food. Like better than serving a cow, unless I'm wrong about that. Even.
It's better because you get more hours.
This is the one.
Yeah, but
what this happens?
For example, I'll tell you right now. I worked through a temp agency, and when I got my assignment at this factory, I was supposed to be getting $10.15 an hour. And I thought, like, hey man, I'm finally making over $10. I'm killing it. This is my first assignment.
Yeah,
after learning, after getting my first check.
That was here?
Yeah. After taxes and after the temp company took their cut, I was getting paid $6.37 an hour.
For what it's worth, I think federally the minimum wage is still $7.40 an hour, but I think in Michigan it was the federal minimum wage or the state minimum wage matched the federal minimum wage.
It did. It was
so actually less than minimum wage.
At that time it was it was still less, but Michigan's minimum wage had bumped up to like $8.10 or something like that.
Right.
Either way, it was still terrible. But not only that, but my supervisor was 23 years old, 23-year-old woman. I remember the first time I talked to her, I was like, hey, where's the break room? It's my break time. And when she opened her mouth to talk to me, her teeth were just this amalgamated mess. And she was just not in good shape. Everything she wore was tattered. Like, you could tell she just didn't have a lot and things weren't going well. But this is all she had, and I kind of saw myself right there. Like, if I'm 23 and I'm in the same position, I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself. Like, I can't let myself just be stuck here. So, one of my friends was in the Marines at the time. I talked to him about it, and he's like, "Yeah, man, the Marines made my life so much better. I love being a Marine," and that's what they all say. But then when they get out, they're like, "I fucking hate the Marines." So I kind of tried to join the Marines at first.
Marine Joe would have been different than Air Force Joe.
Yeah, the Marine recruiters in town were like, I knew I wanted to do something like intelligence because I was like, I can do whatever I want. I want to do something cool. Like, it's a world that people can't just get into. But the recruiters in the Marine recruiting office kept giving me the same pamphlet of like 30 something jobs that were just all infantry and artillery. And I was like, I want to do intelligence. They're like, yeah, we got that. But
are these also relevant to your ASVAB scores? Or was this?
No, they were just like, the infantry, man. We totally don't have a quota we got to meet. And then the Air Force recruiter was like, take a practice ASVAB. You can do whatever you want, what you want to do. And
I imagine you scored pretty high. Just because I think you're a smart guy. But like, do you remember what you got?
No, okay. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Basically, you just said you can do whatever you want.
Okay.
And so I said I want to be airborne and cryptologic linguist.
So and I'm sorry to kind of, again, point it right back at this particular thing. 27, 28? How old are you?
I'm 27, almost 28.
What would 28-year-old Joe who never went into the military be doing right now? Do you think he'd still be at a factory?
Either at a factory or working some other crappy job. Yeah. Stuck in town.
You think
probably alone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think that? And
I just say that just because, like, Aaliyah, she has so much potential.
Sure.
She can do anything she wants artistically.
Award-winning tattoo artist.
Award-winning.
Multiple award-winning, competition-winning.
Has traveled the country winning awards. Not just in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
The game in Michigan kind of sucks anyway. I don't say that.
Look at my skin to prove that point.
but like, you know, she's won awards all over the country. She's done so much. And the other day we were talking about it. She's like, I think I'm a skilled artist. I think I'm accomplished. I'm like, yes, you literally just drew this 70s inspired like art piece for someone as a gift. And then he turned around and drew an illustration of a character from Elden Ring. And then you're going to work, and then you just also like are drawing someone's tattoo designs for the next day. Like, you can do whatever you want. You can sculpt whatever you want. You can, like, embroider. You can do everything you want. Like she had so much potential at the time, and so I feel like if I just stayed doing nothing, being just a regular factory guy, I don't think it would have worked out.
Okay. So you think it had more to do with like the perception of your ambition?
I would not want to hold her back, man. She could do whatever she wanted, even back then. So
okay, now knowing that that is not the case, that you did go into the military and you did serve your time.
I did do that.
Even if it's not grand scheme, any semblance of big picture, not plans, but ambitions for the rest of your 20s? Like, is there something that you want to work towards? Even if that is just finding something you're interested in, like just like finding your passion in and of itself is a tough thing to do. So like, is that kind of the central focus right now? Just finding what you want to do? Is there something you want to do that you feel like you're not allowed to do because of money reasons or whatever? Like what is...
I think, I guess to finish out my 20s, to close my 20s on a strong note, I definitely want to figure out who I am exactly. Like I'm still learning as I go. I feel like I'm a lot better. I'm in a better place now than I was when I got out, whereas I had no idea who, like my whole identity was the military, and to a certain extent now it still is, but I've moved away from it a lot. And so just figuring out who I am, that's what I want to do. It would be cool to figure out what industry I want to work in. So I have no shortage of opportunities with the government.
Yeah.
You know, if I wanted to work at any government institution or state institution and just do security, I totally could because I'm very familiar with it and I did it for so long. Do I want to keep doing that? No.
Okay. I'm glad you said that because I had follow up. If you said yes,
I've had a couple intelligence groups ask me to apply, and I thought, wow, this would be really cool. I'd have to live in a certain area, unfortunately, but I could do all these things, get paid so much money, and I remembered like I got out because I didn't get to see my family and do anything that I wanted to do. So I was like, I don't want to go back to that. So I guess just figuring out what I want to do.
That in and of itself is a big enough challenge.
And like more yo-yo tricks.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that because literally one of the last points I wanted to make is when we get out of here, it's very important that you remind me. We don't need to do it in the room. We can just do it like downtown or something, or just out by your car. I'll get footage on my phone. Do you think, this is maybe the lamest full circle question to ask, are you averse to yo-yo competitions in your future? Do you think that that's like a
I will
thing?
not be ready for a yo-yo competition. Have you go look up just like even like a regular local yo-yo competition? You'll be seeing people do stuff that like my big chunky fingers cannot do. If I can pull off, maybe a few combos, I'll be happy for the rest of my life. But
okay,
it's a lot of practice, but it's a lot of fun. We'll see. I don't know about competition. We'll see.
Okay, final point. This has nothing to do. I'm not actually. This is going to sound political, but I promise it's not. I have a vision for Joe in the next 13 years. By the time that you're 40, I think Joe holds office. I see it.
I've had a few people ask me when I'm going to run for president. Probably never.
Listen, you don't even have to start with president. You start with running, you take over the VA. That's where you start.
Dude, that would not be good. I would drain our whole national budget. I'd be like, you guys are heroes.
We're now
here's money.
Supplying every combat veteran with their own yo-yo branded with just
and a gift card to Bob Evans.
No, I am 90% joking, 10%. You have the personality for office. Even if it's not something that you're ambitious about and you don't want to do it, sure, government is corrupt and politics are fucked. But
I will say I'm a good frontline supervisor, or like I guess like a small group leader.
Yeah.
I will admit like that to myself, like not just like saying like I can lead the hell out of anyone. Like I will like admitting to myself like, yes, I can do that. I am good at it.
Even if it's not president, state congressperson, state senator.
I don't know about that.
That type of thing. I
don't want to be involved with the law.
Yeah, well, are any politicians actually doing anything that has anything to do with laws and writing legislation? Not really.
I've been reading so much about trading and making connections I thought I'd be set to be a politician by now. No.
International trade, or what do you mean by trading? Like trading favors for
Like insider trade? No.
Oh, okay, all right. Joe, the insider trader, or the inside trader.
Just buy Raytheon right now, guys. Everyone, please hold.
Just buy stonks. All right. Well, hey, this has been great.
Yeah.
This is episode 2 of Joe's feature on the podcast. To listeners, as I have a minute and a half here to get this point out, I think I mentioned it up off the top. These are new microphones. This is the first time I'm actually using them in any capacity other than some shitty little sketch that I shot recently. So I apologize for any blips or glitches. We're working on it, but I think this is better than me holding a little dainty little microphone. And for Joe, let's go get some food, yeah?
Yeah.
Some burgers. I'm thinking some burgers and fries and that kind of thing.
Boyga.
Okay, well, I know I'll be continuing to hang out with you for the rest of the day, but I love you. And this has been great. Thank you for doing this. I didn't know that Joe was going to be coming here today. I have 45 seconds, so I got to get this out. I messaged Joe. We were talking about wanting to have him do the podcast, and we were making a plan for the time. And Joe said, like, you just tell me where to go. I said, like, well, I doubt you're actually making a plan to come here. So I think what we're probably going to do is just the Zoom call. And he's like, no, I think I'll just come out to you. So this was a pleasant surprise. Up until yesterday at like 4 o'clock, I didn't know you were coming here.
This is my gas pedal. Like that.
Well, when you're on 131, it's more like, and then the brake. Then the...
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I love you. Peace the fuck out. Thank you for subscribing to the A.D.H.Deep-Dive podcast. Go to catandcrew.com. Enter the promo code Monday, MUNDAY, for 10% off your first purchase. Love you. Bye.